Hi, I'm Stephanie Jaworski of joyofbaking.com. Today we're going to make gingerbread men. This is a really popular cookie for the holiday season, and it's really fun to make it with the kids. So we're going to start by making the dough. For the dry ingredients, in a large bowl, place 3 cups. That's 390 grams of white all-purpose flour. You may know that as plain flour. And to that, I'm going to add 3/4 of a teaspoon of baking soda, a 1/2 teaspoon of salt, and I like to use a kosher salt here. And then we're going to add a lot of really warm spices that we always think of when we think of gingerbread. 2 teaspoons of ground ginger, 1 teaspoon of ground cinnamon, 1/4 teaspoon of ground cloves, and 1/4 teaspoon of ground nutmeg. Now, you could really vary these spices. I mean, if you don't like nutmeg, or you could leave that out or put less in. But this is a good mix to start with. So I'm just going to whisk, or you could sieve all this together. You just want to make sure that the baking soda and all the spices are mixed into the flour. Okay. And then if you have a stand mixer like I do, just use your paddle attachment, or you could just use a hand mixer for this. You will start with a 1/2 cup of butter, which is 113 grams, and have it at room temperature. I like to use the unsalted butter. If you're using salted butter, I might cut back a little on that salt that you added with the flour. So I'm just going to beat this until it's softened and nice and creamy and smooth. Okay. Scrape down as you need to. And next we need a 1/2 cup, which is 100 grams of granulated white sugar, just to sweeten it up a bit. And I'm going to beat this medium-high speed until it's light and fluffy, a couple minutes. Okay, so just scrape down your sides. And then we're going to add 1 large egg and have that at room temperature. And I'm just going to beat that in. And our next ingredient is molasses. We're going to add 2/3 of a cup, which is 160 milliliters of molasses. First, when you measure out molasses, this is a good idea to just spray the inside of your cup first with one of those non-stick sprays, because then that way it doesn't stick to the sides. It's easy, it comes out easily. And I'm using a light molasses. It's a more milder flavor than the dark molasses, and I like to use unsulfured. Grandma's is a very popular brand, and it's very good. So just keep that in mind, what you're looking for, because there's lots of choices of different types: sulfured, unsulfured, light, dark. And of course, if you like a stronger flavor to your gingerbread, you could go ahead and use a darker molasses. Yeah, I'm just going to beat that in. Okay, and now I'm just going to add the flour. I'm going to add that in a couple additions because there's so much flour and you don't want that flying up in your face. So just add, maybe 1/3 of it. Beat that in and then add the rest. More. Really smell the molasses and all those wonderful spices. Okay. And now I'm just going to add the rest of the flour. Okay, and that's it. It's a fairly simple dough to mix up. Now we're going to, we need to chill this dough because we're going to roll it out. So you want it quite firm so it doesn't stick to the counter, and then you want the cookies to keep their shape when they're baked, so it has to, but the dough does have to be chilled. Okay, so I'm just going to put it out here on the counter. Okay, just kind of gather it into a ball. And just roughly cut it in half. And take a piece of plastic wrap, put it in the center, just kind of make a round. Just wrap that up. It's easier if we roll out the dough in smaller sections. It's a lot of dough to roll out in one big circle, so it's easier if we divide it up. Okay. And then into the fridge. This will take several hours, or you could even chill it overnight in the fridge. Okay, our dough has now been chilled until firm. So we need to roll it out. So just you need some flour. Flour your surface pretty well because we don't want the gingerbread dough to stick. And then flour your rolling pin. And we're going to roll this out to about 1/4 of an inch, which is about, what, 1/2 centimeter. And just keep lifting, and if you need to add more flour, just lift and turn. You want to do that so it doesn't stick. If I just left it here and just kept rolling, it would probably stick to the counter, and then when you cut out the cookies, it's a real mess trying to lift them onto the your baking sheet. Now you will need a couple baking sheets, and you can line them with parchment paper, or you can just butter them or lightly spray them with the nonstick spray. And of course you need a cookie cutter. We're making gingerbread men, but really this is a nice seasonal dough for the fall. You could, for Halloween, you could make pumpkins, or, you know, ghosts, you could do that. I mean, you could also use it for Christmas, do all kinds of Christmas ornament shapes. But we're going to do the classic gingerbread man. Kids seem to love that. At least my kids did, and still do. Okay, so once you've got it rolled out, and I'm just checking, make sure it's not sticking, then I got my classic gingerbread man. You can get metal, you can get plastic cutters like this, whatever you have. And I lightly flour it and then press down. And then if you have a lot of flour on the bottom, you could just take a pastry brush and lightly brush off that extra flour. And then just place it on your baking sheet. Now we want to space them a couple inches apart, about 5 centimeters, just in case they spread. Just keep cutting. So as you can see, I'm making big gingerbread men, so I can only fit 6 on my baking sheet. Now, if you wanted to, we're going to decorate these after with frosting. If you wanted to use raisins for eyes and all that, or currants, you could put those on now. If you wanted, you could use these as a gift tag or even as ornaments. So what you need if you want to do that is to take like a little round hole. I'm just using the end of one of these tips and just put it in the top like so. Then you get a little ring, and that way you can loop it like a ribbon or something after you're finished decorating them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cover these and put them in the fridge. What we don't want is when they go in the oven for the gingerbread men to lose their shape, because if the dough has become soft, they will spread, which we don't want to do. So if you put them in the fridge for about 10 minutes, that'll firm that up so you won't have that problem. So while I put these in the oven, in the fridge, preheat your oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 180 degrees Celsius. So now our gingerbread men have chilled a little and they're ready to be baked. So as you can see, what I did while I was chilling these is gather up the scraps and rolled out some more gingerbread men. I'm going to place those in the refrigerator while these are baking. So we want to bake these, depending on the size of your gingerbread men, anywhere between, say, 8 and 12 minutes. What you want is them to be firm and just starting to brown, just barely tinged with brown around the outside edges. Okay, our gingerbread men are now done. As you can see, they're barely tinged with brown around the outside edge. Now keep in mind that the longer you bake these, the more crisp and crunchy they will become. This gives you a really quite soft gingerbread. So if you prefer it like a little more crispy, then just bake them a little longer. So leave them right like this for a couple minutes until the gingerbread men firm up a little, and then just use a spatula and transfer them to a wire rack to cool completely. And then just continue to bake the rest of your cookies, and then once everything's cool, we will make the frosting. So now we're going to make a basic buttercream frosting to pipe on our gingerbread men. So if you have a stand mixer, use a paddle attachment for this, or you can just use a hand mixer. And start with a half a cup of butter, which is about 113 grams, and have that at room temperature. And I like to cut it up into just large chunks because then it'll beat a lot easier. So I'm just going to beat this just until it's nice and creamy and smooth. Okay. And you will need 2 cups, which is about 230 grams of confectioner sugar, or you may know that as powdered or icing sugar, and sift that because icing sugar tends to have a lot of lumps, and we don't want that because we want our frosting to be nice and smooth. So I'm going to add this, I think in a couple, not all at once, maybe half. And start at low, beat it at low speeds. We just want to get it all mixed in. We don't want that sugar to come up in our face. Okay. I'm going to add the rest of the sugar. Beat that in slowly. Okay. So now I'm going to add 1 teaspoon of pure vanilla extract. just to give a little bit of a flavor. Now, if you didn't want to flavor your frosting with vanilla, you could use like an orange extract would be very nice, or a lemon with the gingerbread flavor. That would be nice. And then along with 1.5 tablespoons of either a light cream or even a milk. And then I'm going to beat this on fairly low speed just until it's all mixed together, and then increase your speed to medium, medium-high, and beat for 3-4 minutes just until it's really light and fluffy and of piping consistency. Okay, so we're done. So this is what you're looking for. Just a nice, fairly thick, kind of like whipping cream, I guess you would say. And what I always have on hand is a little extra icing sugar and a little extra milk, just in case you have to kind of add, if it's too thin, add a little sugar, too thick, add a little more milk, just until you get it so you can pipe it easily. And now I'm going to leave the icing white. If you want, you could color, if you would prefer that, with some different colors. If you're having the kids help you, then you might want to do all different colors, because they tend to like different things. So I'm going to use a piping bag. You can buy these disposable ones, or you could just use a Ziploc bag and just cut the end off. And I'm just using a fairly small plain tip. And then just fold back the bag and kind of just hold it and put in some of your icing. If you use these disposable bags like this and put in different colors and let the kids have fun with it, they seem to enjoy it. And then you could have all kinds of different sprinkles or that they could use as well. They tend to really like to put lots of sprinkles. And then just press the icing down to the end till you see it come out the bottom, like so. And then hold it and twist it, because you want to get rid of any air pockets in your frosting. And then really you can kind of do whatever you want here. The one point I would make, if you are going to do gift tags or hang these up on a tree, and you've done this one with the hole, I would bake them a little longer than normal, because you want them quite crisp. You don't want them kind of falling apart on you. So then a simple thing is just to pipe eyes and a big smile. And then we could just pipe some buttons. And then if you wanted to, if you use a small enough plain tip, you could go around the outside like this, because I find kids like icing. So they tend to want a little bit of icing in every bite. So it's just a basic way to do it. Have fun with it. And you can let the icing dry, and you can cover and store these for several days. So until next time, I'm Stephanie Jaworski of joybaking.com.